Hey there! This podcast is brought to you by datacreators.club. It's a website I made to discover the best data content creators out there, no matter their channel, YouTube, Medium, Twitter, you name it. So go check it out and enjoy the show.
Hi everybody, I'm Mehdio and welcome to the Data Creators Club podcast where we interview data folks and learn from their experience. And today we're going to talk about notebooks. I have kind of a relationship of love and hate with notebooks, but apparently Jeremy with me loved them because he built a company around it. So I guess you love them. So welcome, Jeremy, and thanks for being on the show.
Hello, Eddie, and thank you for welcoming me here. I'm very happy to have this conversation with you.
Cool. So can you quickly introduce yourself, where you're from and how you got into data and what's your career path so far?
Yep, definitely. So I'm Jeremy, CEO of Naas. I'm French. I'm talking here from Paris. I've been growing up and in my career into finance. So I'm not originally from data. I did a master in finance, specialized in cash management. And when I was in my first experiences in two companies in software and in oil and gas industry, I was this data geek in the department that everybody was going to get the report very fast, to get all those experts, all those manipulation. You know, there is in every company on this business department, there is always a few folks that knows better how to do the data than the rest of the team.
Yeah,
so
ask that guy.
Yeah, ask that guy. Exactly. So I was this guy, you know. And my stack of tool was basically Excel, VBA, PowerPoint presentation, and I got a headache of working with that stuff.
I understand.
Yeah, you know, it was very painful. You know, even if you have good IT processes in place in different companies, you still have the last mile, which is in some kind of Excel spreadsheet, and you cannot prove the transformation of your data on the last mile, which is actually the most important for decision makers. Like, how the hell are you going to give me this KPI and what did you do to get it? So I started looking at data science when I was struggling in that job and trying to figure out better solution to have full auditability of my transformation process. Also full ability to distribute my data in different places, like Excel, an email, a BI dashboard, whatever output needed to be done, and also bring more transparency and automation capabilities on processes that are very, very manual in such a kind of business department. So this is why basically we created Naas. I started by building an agency, a data agency. We were using Python and notebooks, dealing with business people, explaining them, you know, what the transformation we were doing for them to create the project they wanted. As an example, like getting all the sales data of different entities and, you know, consolidating those sales data and making some prediction out of it. So in making workflows that have data collection, a bit of AI and machine learning, and also a bit of dashboarding was the main thing that we were doing. And once we were doing this, you know, using Jupyter notebooks and Python, we had to deal with a team of engineers, of IT guys, that we were delivering the script, the Python script, to them so that they can put it in production. So at that point, I got into another problem, which was the speed of the business, which is every day changing, new iteration, new ideas, new stuff, was not going to work with the
backlog of IT.
Yeah, the backlog of IT and engineering processes. And I was like, what the hell? What should I do now? Because it's taking too long to prove the value to the business user. So now you're what? You're back in Excel. You're back in Excel because in Excel you save a new version and you're in production. So, you know, there is a bit of a big problem still, I believe, to really bridge the gap between business and IT and make sure that the two population can be on the same page. And the tool that actually enabled that, in my opinion, is the notebook, because you can literally put business and tech people on the same document, which is very powerful.
I'm curious, like, what kind of company are we talking here? Because I guess, like, based on my experience, like, this problem is typically from like traditional or company or corporate company. But do you actually also see that in tech company? Because usually like in tech company, the structure is trying to basically include the tech folks within the business, right? We're more talking into squad and product. So can you a bit like give a more context on that?
Yeah, so the companies that we were talking about, the first company we were working with are, actually like big corporation, like old-fashioned kind of IT structure where data is really new, where they're just getting started with having a data warehouse running. They also struggle because they have dependencies with other kind of third parties. So it's very slow. It's kind of slow pace kind of companies that didn't really take the speed of getting all the modern data stack ready and all this architecture of putting some tech guy and data scientist close to the business is not yet here. So we're talking about, I often say that, and tell me if you believe that or not, but I believe there is 1% of the company that do exactly what you said. There is only a few compared to the mass of all those SMBs and companies that really don't know what to do with their data.
We can talk also a bit about the case of Netflix, because like this is an example where it's a tech company which like have notebooks, heavily notebooks on their data stack. But like what I understand, like, okay, you're trying basically to democratize access to data in company where they're liking this embedded tech folks within the business, right? And by providing tools where they are autonomous. Now, in the past, some dashboarding tool company try also to do like those kind of things where they provide like ETL tools to business where you have like low code to no code, I would say.
Yep.
And my experience is that we suffered a lot from that. Two reasons is that, it was giving a lot of autonomous and direct business value. But as soon as we started to scale, or there was to do some handover, it was a nightmare. So can you a bit like give your view on that? Like how does that relate to Notebook? How does that relate to your experience?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course. So first about your point on Netflix. Netflix definitely inspired Naas. Like the component that Netflix is using, Papermill, is this component
to run a schedule.
We use it inside Naas. So Naas is a Jupyter Notebook instance with Papermill running and different services that you can access in low code, like scheduling, like webbook, like notification, sharing assets. All that stuff is enabled by Papermill.
Yeah. Because can you just give a one line what Papermill is for just the audience?
Papermill is a way to productionize notebooks, to put parameters inside your notebook so that jobs can be executed based on those parameters.
And it was open source by Netflix like a couple of years ago, right?
It was, exactly. Okay. So this triggered what we wanted to build with Naas. This really triggered the building of Naas as a product. Coming back to this is that it actually, with the organization that Netflix has, I was lucky enough to go there, pitch Naas to them, show them what we built.
Nice.
We got the same kind of mindset, which is it's not because you're using Notebook that you're completely disconnected from the engineering side. And what notebooks bring is this ability to let people that have Python basic knowledge write their own queries, build their own dashboard, and eventually at that point you will have a notebook with a lot of code, maybe some functions that are not well written, that needs to be refactored to abstract the complexity of the Python code you have written for reusability in the future. Meaning some functions to get some metrics, you can package them and create a one-liner. This is where the low code that we are building comes from. To create functions that are reusable and scalable in the engineering software lifecycle.
What are the signals according to you? When do you need to kind of like step back from your notebook and package the function or use something else? Like when, because this is this as soon as possible.
Yes.
Because this is like the at least like my main pain that I experience is that you give that Pandora box to the business, right? And like a few weeks later, they come back to you with a monster. And like, how do you help them to say, okay, now you need to package that. How do we enforce those best practice, basically?
You help them zoom out from what they're doing. Like, most likely those people are just going to fix their own problem, and they don't think holistically in a whole in a whole coherent way with different kind of approach. So as soon as you see that the output of the notebook is sticking in the business, like it's valuable, people see the value of it, you should immediately stop the train, package it, make it a nice lib, and then work from that point.
Two things regarding notebooks that I really hate: testing and versioning. And I do believe that also starting with notebook basically doesn't enforce you the best practice for programming. Can you change my mind? Can you change my mind on that?
No?
That's true.
That's true. That's true. What do you want me to say? Like, it's a question of tools, but not only tools. It's a question of human way of using the tool. You know, I've as a business guy, I did my homework before getting into data science. I kind of learned about the whole way of doing this in like the processes, the mindset, how you should package functions, how you should write functions a certain way to make your code nice, how your notebook shouldn't be like messy with like import in every cell of your notebook, like not able to run the whole thing. I always do. We know when now with Naas, we do templates and we have this whole process of, we have a business need, we create a template, we have a framework, which is input, model, and output. Inside this thing, you should declare all your variables first. You should declare all your inputs first. Then you have your model part. Then you write everything inside the model part. You write it as a function so that we can package it in a library after if it's mature enough. Notebooks are like a place where everyone can do anything. You know, it's like freedom for everybody to go, but it's not good. It's not enforcing any good practices unless you put your mind into it. It's like, unless somebody is actually knowledgeable enough to be like, hey, no, there is a framework. I need to respect this framework.
When you basically sell notebooks, you also sell a way of working, right? Not just...
It's a framework.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that talks to me because I feel like a lot of notebooks vendor or whatsoever in the conference, when we have demo, it's always, oh, there is a one line, Python to do that and that. But then we forget about actually the reality where this needs to be tested at scale with unit integration tests. And how do you, make sure that your code is scalable? And it's always, I would say, too much illusion in the magic of the notebooks.
Of course.
Coming back to open source, I'm curious, like, what's your vision with open source and data tools nowadays? Do you think like it's inevitable? Like, do you think that like any SaaS company providing data tool or service should at least provide a part of their product open source?
Yes, definitely.
But so, like, it's always a complex problem on the economy. Do you regret, like, what were the most challenging part when starting that journey for Naas?
The ability for people to understand that open source is not a business model. Open source is a way to collaboratively build a product, and I think this is the most like. This is the biggest problem. People do think that open source is kind of a free software business model, etc. They don't understand the full lens of open source. It's much more about the way to collaboratively and as a community build a tool than an actual business model. Then the business model is freemium or stuff like that. You have different business model. So the hard part was to figure this out. Like, hey, what's the actual open source perimeter, which is collaboratively build some stuff, and what's the business model that we want to like connect with this way of building a product.
I guess like that's also why we have so fast adoption on the data framework in production by tech company. I remember like a shocking experience was a couple of years ago when Kafka was released, was still 0 dot something, and it was in production like massively in big tech company. What do you think is next for the notebooks?
So initially, if we go back to initial kind of story, it was mostly due for research papers. It's like code,
indeed,
paper with code. This was the whole idea. So this idea still remains, but the application have broadened. It's still paper with code. It's still a place where you should have documentation plus the code so that everybody can understand. So even if business people come and read the notebook without looking at the code, they understand what's going on. So I think the people that will enforce this as the place where you put literally business and tech people on the same page are going to have some kind of better adoption than the one that believe that still bringing a notebook as a facility, as a commodity inside your tool is something that is self-sustaining, if you know what I mean. I see that notebooks are here to stay. Of course, they are like already here for a long time. They will still be there in 10 years. But the way people will use them will probably be different. Like, as you said, they could generate a web app from it. They could generate an API from it. They could actually, and this is what Naas intends to do in a way, be a small data backend that you can iterate very fast on it using some templates that you can bundle together so you can have your whole like data engine running, but still with this like scalability in mind, meaning you need to write your thing properly, you need to package your function, you need to make version control, you need to, I would not be surprised, because this is actually what we are seeing now, that, repos or open source repos would be essentially made of notebooks chained together to create a whole backend infrastructure. That can happen.
That sounds scary to me. That sounds scary to me, but let's see how it goes. I think, indeed, I think it's really interesting what you mentioned about the framework, about how to use it. I think the example of Excel is a great one. You can use Excel in a horrible way that makes it super difficult to be integrated with something. I think guideline, we don't talk about that much. And I think having guideline and frameworks around notebooks to help it, I would say give just a little bit less freedom to the business user, so that we're sure we put the rules and the limits.
You need to, otherwise, business minds are everywhere thinking all the time, different stuff, many different stuff. You need to come back to reality with the tech.
Approaching the end of the podcast, and just what's next to you? What's in your backlog for you personally? I mean, you've been putting a lot of content, but also, for your company. Can you tell us about that?
So we'll keep pushing in the notebook framework that I was telling you about, the Naas framework, trying to really enforce the templating approach, the ready to use with this input, model, output organization of your notebook, packaging of the libraries. Again, this is something that I want to keep pushing, because I think we are not still there in terms of literacy on that front. Fight dirty notebooks, basically.
That's a good mission. I love it. I love it. Seriously, it's like you brought my hate for notebooks a little bit lower now. I mean, I do use them mostly for debugging, not really for coding. But I can buy the framework around it to basically have some borderline for business.
Yeah, it's really necessary, because unless there is a better interface to open the data world to more people, notebooks are going to still be there. So we'd better work hard in the way we organize notebooks, and we make sure that they are secured and fitting with the engineering needs. So yeah, and basically, so our roadmap for the next few months is to actually create a huge catalog of templates that are very well organized, that have their low-code formula that is packaged into the Naas driver library, which is the kind of a low-code approach to get the data frame and to interact with tools, and to execute this with content creation, sales, marketing, operation, finance. We have a few like domains in which we want to develop this catalog of templates so that, you know, it's ready to start for people that have a fixed need of what they want to do. And so that the data engineers and the data scientist people can really come with this template already built with a certain structure and be like, hey, I'm going to help you specifically on that front. I don't want to like, I'm not in charge of the whole thing. I just want you to be empowered with the pre-built templates, and then we can work together on making this algorithm or making this data set more clean, or, you know, having some better quality overall of the work that is produced.
Jeremy, thank you again for being on the show. And
Thank you.
I wish you the best of luck for you and your notebooks then, I guess.
Thank you so much, Mehdi.